What's up, YouTube? Today I have an amazing guest, probably the guest you guys requested the most to get back again. Al, it's a pleasure to have you with me. If you are not aware, I believe my video with you on my channel talking about the Talking Cards podcast is the one with the most views, and I can
Oh,
understand why people really like the conversation we had, and I think big part of that is your knowledge. So welcome back to the podcast. How you have been doing, and share just a couple of words. At this point, I suspect everyone knows about you.
yeah, no, hey, thanks, Andre, for having me back. It's great to touch base and always have time and love to talk about soccer cards and the markets. For those of you who don't know me, I'm on Instagram. I go as El Ray collection. That's El Ray and then underscore collection. And then I also have a YouTube channel which is called Epic Cardboard, or also known as El Ray Collection, where I
Great
mostly do
channel.
vintage. Yeah, I do vintage mostly stuff. I've actually been super busy in my personal life over the last multiple months, so I've unfortunately not done a ton of that. I occasionally will get on and do a stream, or some unpacking of PSA returns and or mail. I've been almost, now I think it's close to 15 years heavily collecting soccer, but I also collect other disciplines as well, including some Pokemon cards, boxing cards, baseball cards. So have been very much in the hobby since the time I was a kid, and I don't think it'll ever leave my blood, so to speak. I'm just a collector, true and true.
No, that's great. And you end up talking about your Instagram, your channel. Basically, your channel, I will put on the title, so people don't even need to take that deep to find your channel. Just click on the title of the video, and they will redirect to your channel. And I strongly recommend everyone to watch your videos, especially if they are into vintage. I think that's your cup of tea the most, even though you collect a lot of different stuff, even in different areas. But if people love vintage videos, I learn a lot from them. So I suspect a lot of people watching these videos can also learn a lot. The way this works, Al, and you are aware, I have 5 questions for you. We don't need to stay with them, just these 5 questions. We can talk about different stuff. They are basically to start the conversation, and I think they are important topics. So we'll start with the question number one. And the question number one goes this way. The last time I had you on the Talking Cards podcast, we ended up talking about the soccer card market for logic reasons, but the reality of the market was a bit different than it is right now. I think that's fair to say. In the last 12 months, there is a lot of pain. I think I was talking about this on my Patreon community, that one common sentiment in all markets right now is fear. And I think when there is a lot of fear, things become quite tricky to navigate. And it does not matter the market, collectible stocks, crypto, everything is facing some type of pain or some type of uncertain fear in the market. So not just stock, not just soccer. My question is, how do you see the market right now? And what worries you about the market for the future, and what also makes you be positive about the soccer card market? Very complex topic, and I'm taking too much
Yeah,
time, but
yeah. There's a lot to unpack there. How do I feel about the market? And frankly, like you say, almost any market, whether it's stocks, it's even my bank deposits. I'm sure
yeah.
you guys, yeah, I'm sure you guys hear about what's going on with Silicon Valley Bank here, and some of the I've been spending a lot of the last week moving money around accounts to make sure that all
Yeah,
the money that I have is insured. So how do I feel about all markets? Nervous, right? I
of
think
course.
that would be a lie if I didn't say that I was feeling nervous about it. Anything, everything I have, as it relates to the soccer card market in general. I mean, we felt a ton of pain over the last 18 months or so, and I think now when I kind of review the PWCC auctions, which I use as a general barometer, I'm not on Terapeak and 130 point and market movers checking every card and everything. Like a lot of people are, like James is doing some great dives on, especially modern stuff, and so I'm not tracking prices that closely. I frankly don't have the time. But what I'm seeing anecdotally and based on my experience, which is quite extensive and seen many cards trade many times over the last 15 years, is it's just a great time to be a collector. I think so many cards are right around the pre-pandemic pricing for absolute crazy greats. And again, I'm going to focus mostly on vintage, but I think you could make a very legitimate case, as you do when you're in your, in the soccer study Discord, where you're talking about, is this a good deal or not? I click on those and I'm like saying, holy cow, second year, beautiful Iniesta, Panini,
that was a good deal, honestly.
$50. I'm like, are you kidding me? I mean, I look at this stuff and I'm like, the grading fee, you're buying the card high grade for $25.
To find a 9.5, you probably spend more than that even on Spain. So
yeah, I look at some of this stuff and I'm like, there's so many deals to be had if you believe long run in the soccer card market, which I do. And I can get into those reasons more. But I think just when you look around, in general, you say, at least I say, wow, like if I could, I would pick up another 50 cards every PWCC. As it is, I'm picking up somewhere between 10 and 20, and I'm mostly filling out cards that I don't have, or cards that I just think I place a marker bid and don't expect to win and come back and win. So, I think that it's a great time to be a collector. It's kind of hard to be a seller right now. Yeah. But I've always preached, and I know you have as well, you don't put your rent money into cards expecting to make a quick flip. That may have worked for some people at sometimes, but I've always preached, listen, the transaction costs are too high. 15% to 20% on eBay or auction houses, that's the break even. So you can't really expect to make a ton of money on a quick flip in cards in general. It needs to be a medium to long-term investment, unless you pick the right prospect, or you have, or you just buy exceedingly well, right? So, I think that, in general, the market, I'm actually been more encouraged the last couple months. I think after kind of Christmas, I kind of feel like there's been a kind of a stabilization, and in certain things, a slight increase, which, by the way, a lot of other markets, cryptos, Bitcoin's nearly doubled, over that period for different reasons. And certainly the last couple of weeks has had a big impact on that with the banks. But, when I look at it, how do I feel? I feel great as a collector. I'm not rushing to sell a ton of stuff. Like you always say, maybe you should be buying and selling some stuff. I'd certainly be lighter on the selling right now, because I think there's still a lot of intrinsic value for true rarity pieces in kind of the market. So at a high level, I don't know, there was a lot of questions you had in there. It was like a 4-part question. I'm not sure if I got to all of them, but in general, I feel pretty good about it, right? I feel pretty good about the long-term, the fact there's so many fans that we're only 3 years, 3 months away from the World Cup in the US, Canada, and because of, Qatar was so late. It's and then we're going to have all this excitement, going on. I think, as Champion League kind of gets through, and people are, it starts getting more and more news here about what Holland is doing. I don't know. I think there's so many reasons to be excited. It doesn't take a huge amount of additional collectors to kind of move the needle, especially in the vintage market.
No, I agree totally with that. And you end up touching in a point that is very crucial, is that, you can buy a card, but if you try to sell it, you basically need to have that card increase 30%, because when you put all the fees you have to pay, PayPal, your credit card, then what you paid to get the card to you. So there is so much fees involved. It's not like in stocks that you click a button and that's it, And so I think that's a good point, that in terms of, basically comes to liquidity. Cards are not super liquid. That's the problem. That's why I also believe more in value investing into cards than trying to flip. And of course, there is people that makes money flipping cards, and they think we are probably them. But the reality is, I think is easier, at least for me. Maybe I'm not smart enough to keep flipping cards. I think that's quite dangerous. I prefer to hold. Look, there is nothing wrong with selling cars even at a loss if you don't believe anymore and if you believe there is a better opportunity in the market. But that point you end up touching, I think, is quite important.
Yeah, I mean, think about like if you trade a stock here, at least in the U.S., it almost costs you nothing.
Yeah, it's similar in Portugal. It's basically
right. So
nothing.
it's like $1, $5, but you're on $1,000 transaction, $10,000 transaction, whatever. When you buy a house, you're paying 5% transaction fees, and people are like, "Whoa, that's so much," right? But for cards, it's usually, I mean, in the best case, 15% with
Yeah.
eBay, right? And in the worst case, 25 to 30%. So if you bought it wrong, like the price you have to pay to break even, I mean, the price you have to sell at is really high. It's a lot of market growth. So the only way you can offset that is by having a longer term view, because no market
Exactly.
rationally is going to go up, double digits every, year, or 20-30%. No market exists like that. If not, everyone would be in it, and that advantage would be taken away, right? Just the law of efficient markets, which cards we can certainly argue whether they're efficient. I don't think they are to the extent of other markets, but even still, the transaction fees are way more in this segment than in other asset categories.
No, I totally agree with that. I think that's something that people sometimes forget about. That I buy this to sell later. Yeah, but do you understand how much you need to have that card appreciate in value to actually make sense to sell? Because, like you said, I mean, it's at least 10%, 15%. Yeah, gets really difficult
And then
to
you've
be
got the
honest.
time value of money too, right? So, with
Yeah, also
inflation and
that.
everything on top of it. So, it's just, and this is one of the reasons, and I know that your vantage point on your channel is very focused on, value investing and stuff. And look, I don't get into cards that I hope to lose a lot of money on, but part of the reason why my mentality is a collector mentality is because I don't want to be worried. Like if I was worried about only making money on my collection, I would have passed on so many cards in my career that I really would have missed from my collection that are part of my favorite cards.
Yeah.
So I think that's actually something that has worked to my huge advantage, and actually, frankly, made me a lot of money, because I stretched above market, above where I probably could have at that particular time thought I could get a reasonable return for. And those ended up being like absolute home runs, right?
Yeah,
Does that make sense?
no, makes a lot of sense. I think maybe, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe you started more as a collector and later became an investor because things end up appreciating so much. And I really think collecting should always be the main focus. I know I talk a lot about this stuff, the value investing, etc. But in reality, I love to collect. I know it's a cliche to say things go to zero, but yeah, even if things go to zero, I feel like I will be collecting in some way. Maybe not as much as I collect nowadays. You probably feel similar, but yeah, I think collecting, enjoying. I mean, at the end of the day, especially if you collect pre-modern, vintage, they are pieces of history that you have in your hand. It's crazy to have a card that comes from UK, from Sweden, that end up surviving so many years. That is the only rookie for this player, the Zidane foot. I personally find that beautifully something that gives me a lot of joy, and I cannot put a price on that. Basically. Hey guys, quick pause on this one. Hope you are enjoying the video, but I want to share two things with you. The first is my Patreon community. If you love this type of videos, you probably love my content on Patreon. I put a new Q&A every week there, and I also put extra audio that you can call a podcast on Saturday. If you join Patreon right now, you have hours and hours and hours of content. It's actually quite crazy. Link below the video if you want to join. In this case, link on the description. The second thing is my Discord server. Amazing place to interact with me, amazing place to interact with other collectors to learn about the soccer card market. We are more than 900 members and we are growing super fast. Link also below the video, check both, and now let's continue with this one.
Yeah, me neither. In fact, when I started collecting soccer, it was almost like things were zero. Like
That's the best time.
it was hard to spend, like nearly impossible to spend $1,000 on a card.
Yeah.
Like it was just like crazy. I remember when I bought my Messi PSA 9 71 Bisses, and they were like $300 each.
When was that?
That was probably like 2012 or 2014 or something.
It's crazy.
And at that point, I mean, that was a big number, right?
No, for sure.
That was a big number. And the only thing that helped me was like, are you kidding me? This guy, relative to what baseball guys, had. And I think at that point it was like a pop 20 and the PSA 10s were like 10. I'm like, well, this is good enough. I've never been a huge fan of the big PSA 10 premiums just because of the subjectivity and grading. So I looked at it and I'm like, okay, well, let's do that. Even though it was more, I think the last trade at that point when I did it was like 225, right? And it's like, why pay $75 more? And I'm like, well, if this kid pans out really for the long run, and even at that point, his legacy was really well on his way. You're like, okay, well, relative to a baseball, that's gonna make a lot of sense. And I said, and if I lose, a few $100, so be it. So I think obviously the market's changed a lot, since then. But I actually really, really, really enjoyed, and that's probably why I enjoy the prices coming down right now, even though probably on paper I lost a lot of money relative to the highs of course. But it's not to me about, will we ever get to those highs again? I don't know. I don't really care, because I get so much utility or enjoyment out of collecting anyway, that that there's so much value to me there beyond just the economic.
No, I agree totally. It's funny that you are talking about the 7-1 Bs Messi, right? So
Yeah.
I'm actually working on a video. Not sure when I will put that out. That is basically price history in cards, in this case in soccer cards. And Messi 7-1 Bs always was the most expensive Messi. For example, in 2016, a BGS 9 Messi Mundi Chrome 2004 was $21. But you can already see that the focus was already in the other card. Actually, in terms of percentage, a lot of the other Messi end up doing well, especially comparing with the 2016 until now, then 7 on Bs, even though the appreciation on 7 Bs was also quite crazy. So yeah,
I don't know what you think, and I know the purpose isn't to get into one card, but Bill and I have been talking about this, and we mostly talk about vintage stuff. But I start to look at where some of those 71 Bisses are trading right now, and then you look relative to the pop report, and I just feel like, if you believe in the soccer market long term, and I'm not saying that things can't go down from where they are now, because they clearly can, right? And could there be a decrease in interest in Messi over the next few years after he retires? Certainly, call him, from year 1 to the year 5 of when he retires. Certainly, that happens with all major stars after they retire, right? Now, there could be a bump if he comes to MLS, there's lots of different things that could happen, but in general, let's just say, would you be good now 15, 20 years from now? Like if you're thinking about your kid with a 71 bis with a very, very long-term plan, it's hard for me to think of a narrative where that wouldn't be a great card to get into.
No, I agree. I also think the market ended up changing a bit of perspective recently on the Messi rookies. I thought for a long time when I'm looking at the headshot, the SS sticker, and I think all of them are still great. But after the World Cup, people are realizing more and more, basically what you said there. That's the card for Messi. So it's almost that the mentality ended up changing. Messi does not have 7 rookies. Messi have 1 rookie and 6 secondary rookies, which makes a lot of difference when you put in perspective. And you are talking about the Messi 7-on-Bs, but the Messi 7-on-Bs, if you compare with most stuff in vintage, most stuff in pre-modern, is holding very strong, honestly. Even the what's the Campeón, and even the Spanish versions, there are those. I was talking with James, and James tracks that even closer than me, and those stuff is selling for the same amount of money or very close in the last 3, 4, 5 months. Again, can those go down? There is still that possibility, especially if all of this stuff going on keeps getting worse and worse. That's very logical. But I also think that there is the amount of collectors in Messi, I think, is different than any other player, honestly. I know you love Pelé, and I think Pelé is probably the closest thing in vintage. But I see especially even if you put modern, I see so many Messi collectors nowadays. If I compare with Ronaldo, it's not even. I don't know a lot of Ronaldo collectors, Messi collectors, and I'm always looking to bring people to the podcast. I had already 2 Messi collectors that just go for Messi. I'm looking for a Cristiano Ronaldo collector, and I'm not finding one. Which, again, of course, is just my bubble. I could be wrong, and maybe there is more. But I think the demand for Messi is quite different than there is for any other player, honestly.
Yeah, no, I think that's right, and I actually do think that this little focus on Messi, which I still think is great. I can't tell you if this is the perfect time to get in, but I can tell you that if you have a long-term perspective, you believe in cards and you believe in the soccer market, would be a critical. If I was just starting, that would be a critical piece of how I would be thinking about the a foundation of a collection, right? So and I'd probably go, depending on my budget, from a PSA 7, 8, or 9, and I'd probably just put that away in a drawer and consider it a long-term investment if that was what was important to me. I do think that this focus on Messi and the lack of focus on Ronaldo has created an opportunity, frankly, for Ronaldo cards, because this gap and this chasm, I just bought, shockingly, a Noir Ronaldo on card, autograph, because it was just too cheap. I mean, I think history's going to show, yes, right now everyone's like Messi, Messi, Messi. Oh, Ronaldo, right? He didn't win the World Cup. He had kind of a bad attitude. Now he's playing in Saudi Arabia. Oh, it's so bad. When the dust settles, they're going to recognize
he's a good also.
Yeah, I mean, he's literally okay. Let's say that right now we think there's like a full step between them. I mean, I think time's going to be kinder to Ronaldo, and I think that step's going to decrease in time, and I think that there could be some opportunity in CR7 stuff, because nobody else is interested in it right now. At least from, like, it used to be, even like a couple years ago, they'd almost be on par for all similar cards, like.
So I actually have some data on that. So I was looking at the peak volume of sales, and actually that's a tool that is quite underrated by most collectors, because you can check the volume of sales in the last 2 years on eBay, and if you put Messi PSA, basically cards graded with PSA for Messi, the volume of trade there, I'm talking from the top of my head, so numbers may not be exactly this, but I believe is around $12 million in the last 2 years. If you put Ronaldo, No, I'm sorry. I believe Messi is 9. I'm sorry. If you put Ronaldo, I believe is around $5 million. So is a big difference. But like you said, I mean, they are both connected forever. That's also a huge thing, since they end up being such rivals. I think Messi is better. I cannot go in a different direction, but I also love Ronaldo. I think Ronaldo is
Yeah, I mean,
a machine.
I honestly was super disappointed I couldn't win the black Panini, sticker. That was really kind of high on my list.
I would love that if you end up winning that, because I think that will be perfect for you. I think that will be a nice piece in your
yeah, I mean,
collection.
I you know I got authorization, from the Minister of Home Finances. And we went, we were willing to go pretty strong, more than six figures. And, at some point, like I was mentioning earlier, I still got my second kid's going to college. My daughter's going into the master's degree. That stuff's expensive here, in the US. And
Oh,
it just,
maybe you can get the Ronaldo one. I mean,
yeah,
I never saw that appear, right? Or
it hasn't come out, at least to my knowledge. It still hasn't come out. So, and I'll constantly be looking for that card. I mean, I tried to broker a deal with the guy who got it
Mhm.
originally, who pulled it. um and that didn't happen. So, it took a couple days. There was definitely some pain, for me over that, because I do think it's the most important Panini World Cup sticker made. and
Oh yeah, I mean, it's a one of one.
and 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 it's
It's
I mean,
Messi, World
that's
Cups.
that's saying something, right? The most important Panini World Cup sticker ever made. I mean, that's certainly the narrative I had in my wife, that I had to have my wife buy into, to get that approval. And I had secret hopes that it was going to go a little bit under the radar. Clearly, it didn't. Um, so yeah, I mean, I was certainly bummed about that. But if the Ronaldo one came up, even though it's not nearly as iconic as the Messi one, given that he won the World Cup, I'd certainly,
But
be
it's
interested in that.
still amazing, yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, also I was talking with you about Magic the Gathering before we started recording. I'm not sure if you saw one of my videos in my second channel. Magic is going to make a one of one also for the first
I saw
time.
that, the Lord of the Rings. I love that. I love
Yeah, so
that too.
it's actually crazy. I thought that was perfection almost, because the card will be the one ring,
Yeah,
and
the
this
one of one.
and is the one. By the way, the other cards there will be serial number, but not. That's the only one of one. And the crazy part about this is there is already people putting prices
Yeah,
saying
bounties on them. Yeah.
if you open this, I give you, I believe the maximum I saw is 100K already. So, and in a weird way, it's almost like the movie, the books, that there is a lot of people really trying to have the ring.
Want the ring,
So
my precious.
I thought was quite perfect. But
I love that. I would pay 100 grand for that. I think, and I know, like, on a relative basis, when you look at, hey, the Black Lotus 500, I think anything north of 100 may be a little, a little risky.
yeah,
But it's the one of one, and it's the one ring. I mean, it's and I'm a super Lord of the Rings, fan. And it's like,
no, that
precious,
I thought that was
and it
perfect.
looks amazing too. The
Looks
the card looks
amazing.
it looks amazing.
Being is full license with the Tolkien company. I think it's such an amazing, and there is so many people trying to chase the card. Goes very well with the lore around Lord of the Rings and the One Ring. But I saw someone commenting. I saw this on Twitter. There is no confirmation, but Post Malone, the American
The
rapper,
rapper, yeah.
he is a huge fan of Magic the Gathering. He bought a PSA 10 Black Lotus. And there is rumors that he is also trying to get that, and that guy can go for half a million, 1 million, no problem. So
Yeah.
good. I would not be surprised if he's actually Post Malone is actually the winner.
The
So
$100,000 guy.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
no, but
No,
yeah,
that
but
would be that would be crazy. But yeah, I mean, I am I am, yeah, that was a cool, that's a cool card. I didn't know about that. I learned about that on your other channel, and I'm like, I immediately started looking at boxes, and the collector's box versus the that whole graph of like which one has the chance of the 1 of 1, and it's pretty cool. I thought it was a very smart way that Wizards of the Coast put together kind of the boxes and what was in each one. I thought that was a very intelligent way. Of course, it's profit maximizing, which
Mhm.
I don't have a problem with. If you
That,
have a
that,
good product that people want,
and
why not?
they are a company at the end of the day, so.
Yeah, why not make money, right? I mean, I try to do that in the businesses that I run. So,
But
um,
I
yeah,
actually think that's an amazing way to do a modern product, because they said, okay, players will not be affected. They have the normal version that will still be quite cheap. Then we also make a more collector type of product. And even look, if you compare with sports, you probably know this better than me, flawless, eminence boxes, those stuff is crazy expensive.
yeah,
This one, and for sure that's the card you want to get, and let's be real, it's very unlikely that you open that. But boxes are around, I believe, $300, $400, so it's not even crazy expensive comparing with sports. Of course, it's still a lot of money,
yeah.
but you can get other number cards, so even if you don't
Yeah.
sign.
It's not like everyone's chasing one card and that's it. There's
Yeah.
all sorts of it. It's just there's only one of one for the ring,
No, yeah.
which I think was brilliant and a
Oh,
nice
brilliant.
a nice twist on it. And I think, yeah, you're right. I don't play typically in the modern market. Um, but every now and then, like I've got some Topps Chrome Star Wars over here that I'm looking at. I'm playing some stuff like that. But I mean, I think that it's certainly, I think that those types of things would be fun if they came over to the sports card,
But
market.
when I saw that card, I automatically thought about the 1 of 1 Messi, because I thought it's similar. Again, the lore is a bit better on the Lord of the Rings, but I thought is the same. Is a product that everyone can enjoy, but there is still a grail that you guys can find, and I actually like that quite a lot. It's better than having 100 parallels and nothing is actually rare at the end of the day. So
Yeah, like that. I think the a video, one of the videos that I most liked recently, that I had the chance to see was James when he's talking about all the numbered Messi cards,
yeah.
and I kind of knew like intuitively about how many that there were, but fundamentally, I it was nice to see the math behind it, and you're like, I mean, none of this stuff is truly, rare, which is why I go back to, would I rather have one of the 40 PSA 971 bisses, which over the last 20 years, we only have, 60 cards that are nines or tens, and it's his rookie. I'll take those all day long rather than some numbered 1 of 5 that happen to be some gold prism, right?
And
Again, that's me.
I think one of his examples, and by the way, shout out to James because his channel he does amazing work there. But one of his examples he end up sharing, and I also end up talking about this in one of my Patreon videos, is that if you look at the most common Messi rookies, not the most, but the second most is Mundichrome, the Mundichrome card for Messi, but across all companies is 1.5K. Look, you have versions of Messi numbered cards that they are all numbered cards that they go almost to 1K if you put all the copies in one set. And those cards don't have the same narrative. Another thing that I end up taking away from that video, that I not that I disagree with James, but I think you can also look in a different angle. Talking about modern, and now I will make a case for modern, is that okay, there is whatever amount of numbered cards for Messi, but you can also make an argument that the sets that matter, they become a bit more special. like Topps Chrome, like Prism, Flawless, all the sets. I'm talking about the first, of course, because they will forever be the first product that got introduced for that specific brand, then later end up expanding and becoming super important for the soccer card market. So I thought it was a nice video, but I also think you can look in a different perspective, trying
Yeah.
to make a
Well,
positive case for modern.
a lot of people think I'm totally negative on modern and Prism and stuff. Honestly, I love the way the cards look. And one thing that people might not know about me, because I don't think I had mentioned it, but since we're on the topic, I bought a complete 2014 Prism base set. So you say, why? Why would you care? All PSA 10 graded. Um, and it's not because I think that base Prism is the best. I just think it's an iconic set for the hobby.
No, I agree.
And I basically got it for below the price of grading, and all of the cards gemmed out. So I'm like, okay, that to me, for the importance of the soccer card hobby, that was I remember buying retail of that and ripping it and saying, it's finally nice that there's some good soccer cards available beyond just stickers, which showed up on the USA shelves. And I think it is a very important set. Now, do I think it deserves a narrative of, oh, first Prism should be more important than the rookie, or some of the crazy prices that some of the golds get? That's not necessarily for me. I understand people that want to go there and pay the super high prices for the parallels, but for me, it just seems like, hey, that's a nice first set. And if you're a collector, it's kind of like the 52 tops.
Yeah.
You just pick up the set. You can buy ungraded sets for super cheap. It looks beautiful, right?
I agree. No, I agree.
So I like, I think that I'm constantly picking up the one-off thing that I think is important to the narrative, the long run narrative of the hobby.
No, I agree. And is basically what you said. At the end of the day, if you want to tell the history of the soccer card market, there is no way you can skip the 2014 set, because for good or for worse, that set was the first American big product. So, and the market we have right now, we also have to be realistic. Is a lot because of Prism, is a lot because of we finally have some product that especially Americans can also understand, can also follow. So I when I started this channel, and I already talked about this a couple of times, I was very negative about modern, but my mentality ended up changing a bit. I can understand a bit better, why so many people like the Prism stuff, the Chrome stuff, because they are important at the end of the day for a certain segment of the market. And even in a macro perspective, I believe they will become historical sets because they are very important in reality, So
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's going to be like the biggest home run of the things that I've bought, but I
yeah,
do think that as a collector, I think it's a very important set. And just like you could say the same with the Topps Chrome set, first Topps Chrome set, just like you can say that these parallels, like I'm still putting together some of these 2022 parallel sticker sets, the gold
I
set.
look. I actually think that set is a bit underrated. Again, no financial advice, but I think that 2022 set, the sticker, there is a couple of parallels that are really really difficult to find. Forget the one-of-ones because those are impossible. But yeah, I mean, and I was looking at eBay; they still sell quite strong. I was looking at Messi, etc., and they don't grade very well, right?
They all grade terribly.
Yeah,
But I mean, even the 101 was a PSA 8. And I think one of the things that stopped my wife from giving me more approval was she's like, you think that this was going to be the 101? At least they'd make sure they're all freaking centered right, and or at least the main cards, because and she's not wrong. And I said, on the flip side, that's part of the beauty. These stickers
yeah.
just come out of the pack.
I kind of like that.
It's just like whatever it is. I mean, the big ass machine making billions of these things, and you just get what you get and you don't get upset. I mean, that's just, they come like that out of the pack, right?
Oh,
So I was actually surprised. And there's only like 5 blocks that are graded, and the Messi's the highest, right? I think the
yeah,
next closest is like a 4 or a 5.
it's crazy. And I also saw people when that sale ended up happening on Goldin, people saying, "Oh man, I would much rather have the Prism 1 of 1." I disagree so much with that.
Me too.
And not that I don't think the Prism is probably also very important, but that's it. I believe that there is at least 2 or 3 1 of 1s on the Prism set.
I think there are five. Maybe I'm
Maybe I
wrong.
don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. But
Yeah,
but
that's like the
I know there is more than one at least.
yeah. So to me, it was like the sticker and then the prism,
Oh
one
yeah,
of ones down here, right? So yeah, it'll be. I mean, I'll continue. And here's another thing that I learned. I mean, and this hopefully will be helpful to people that are kind of new to the soccer card market or just kind of getting their feet wet. I, if you're not 110% convinced of something of a price for a product, no matter how rare it is, my general advice is don't buy it.
of
And
course.
here's just a perfect example. Here's a card that I wanted. I tried to snuff out everybody I knew in the hobby to get me in touch with the guy who pulled the card. I'm able to do it. I tried to make my best run for it, but in the end, it just got beyond where I felt comfortable. And I'll tell you, not always, but a decent percentage of the time, if you stay in this collecting market for a long time, there's another chance.
No, yeah. I mean,
Again,
that
not
one is a
always.
bit that one is a bit more difficult.
Yeah. I mean, it's a bit more difficult, but I will tell you from my Negro League collection when I started it 25 years ago, literally everybody that I talked to literally told me this is impossible. Why? Well, because out of the 70 or 80 Hall of Fame cards that are known, um, 40 of them are less than 5 copies, and 12 of them are 1 of 1s. And some of them are in diamond hands. And so I just had to wait and wait and wait and wait until those things became available. And then when they became available, I had to pay.
Of course.
So I think that on these 1 of 1s, sometimes they go away forever, true, but I at least have enough experience to not have to go crazy if it gets well beyond where I was comfortable. And in this case, even though I still think there's value there at the price, I it's a lot less value than it would have been if it was, around 100,000.
No, I agree, and yeah, who knows, right? Things change from time to time, so it's not impossible for sure. Hello, we need to go a bit faster because we
Yeah,
are
yeah,
still on the
sure.
question number 1. So, question number 2 is pop reports, they only go up. This is a side that we all tend to agree. Otherwise, things are even more scary if they are going down. But I believe that some cards, both in vintage and pre-modern, modern is a bit different since we kind of know the print runs, especially for numbered cards, is even more easier to understand. But in vintage and pre-modern, a couple of cards end up surprising us in a negative way and also in a positive way. My question is a difficult one, but in terms of rarity, which cards end up surprising you the most in both cases? Give me one example or two in a positive way that you thought, you know what, actually the pop is still, low, even lower than I expected, and one that ended up surprising you in a negative way.
Yeah, I'm gonna while I'm sitting here, I'm gonna check a couple pop reports just to verify this. But I think in general, the things that kind of surprised me in a negative way, I'd say, kind of the Mundi Chromo kind of PSA 9s and above. I think kind of I didn't I thought that issue generally had kind of a centering issue.
But
Um,
I agree with that. By the way, I think you are giving a very good example. I also thought that the nines will be fairly low, but the pop also ended up increasing for nines and eights quite more than I expected, at least.
yeah, certainly more than I expected as well, and so I got that kind of wrong. And I think that's a negative for the I'm trying to find it right now. Oh no, this is the foil. one, which actually hasn't gone up that much. You know, there's still on the, you know, the one that has the two players on it, that Mundi
Well,
Chromo.
yeah. No, I believe in terms of pop report, is still the lowest Messi on the market. Is that one?
Yeah, there's 130 of the non-foil and 150 of the foil, more or less.
By the way,
So
Al, I believe the non-foil PSA 10 is pop one, so he's actually the most scarce rookie for Messi. If that appears in the market, is the one of one again. Of course, more can appear,
yeah,
but I would love to see one of. I believe the foil is pop two on a PSA 10.
so the non-foils pop two, the foils
Yeah,
pop one.
exactly.
Yeah,
But I
so
would love to see them hit the market because I think that card. I also prefer the other rookies, but the rarity is so incredible on the tens. Then they may surprise a lot of people if they appear on the market.
yeah, I mean, and they have, because I have a PSA 9 set on the registry, and every time a PSA 9 comes up of either one of those, I think I have eights. And I try to upgrade to the 9, it goes way more than you would expect, like on a relative basis, because
Yeah.
there's just so few of them. Do you remember what the number was on the Messi? Let me see. Oh, it's 617. Yeah, so there's a little less than 1,000 right now of the Mundi Chromo, and there's 227 nines. And that, compare that to the 71 bis of 40, right? And I thought that the Mundi Chromos, at least the copies I had, were never well centered. And
No,
so I
I
thought that
agree.
was just gonna, that surprised me, you know, certainly in a negative way. Um, you know, do I still think it's a great card? As you know, probably the first card
You know, I
issued with
love it
him.
still. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that the image on it is amazing, and I
Yeah, it's
still
my.
love it. Right, I still love it, but that definitely has surprised me.
So I'll
Um,
okay, let me just. I'm sorry to interrupt
yeah,
you. So I was talking with a Spanish collector, and this is again, I don't have confirmation on this one again, but he told me that Mundi Chromo end up using Google Image. So there is a good chance that Messi is a Google Image. At the time, maybe Yahoo or something. But he told me that the guy actually had great information about the Spanish sets. I end up learning a lot talking with him. And another fun fact is that Mundi Chromo, the PSA 9 is more than all the ST sticker graded.
yeah, oh yeah, and the Estee sticker, we were looking at that the other day, Bill and I, and like the Estee sticker, I mean, the Estee sticker, I think, would be a massive home run if it wasn't for the concerns of the fake ones,
Yeah, I agree.
because it's still like, it's my second favorite Messi rookie, because of the rarity, because a lot of them got stuck, right?
Yeah, no, yeah.
You know,
And
so
another thing is that sticker is part of an update, so was not on the original release. So because of that, no, but I totally agree. And what you end up touching there, the fakes is. And I also feel the same for the Ronaldo sticker. I think that sticker is such a beautiful sticker for Ronaldo. Is honestly a shame that so many fakes end up appearing.
I know it's just it's just is painful, because what it's done to the market. So yeah, I think that's one that's kind of surprised me negatively. You know, I think one, and this may be a funny choice, because I'm just trying to look right now. Okay, so I just wanted to confirm my facts so that people weren't later calling me out. So I actually have been a huge fan of the Perfetti Forza Goal cards,
Okay.
which is a 1985 issue that has the Maldini and Baggio rookies in it. And, you know, I had told people for many years, you know, that I said, look, I spent the last, you know, at that point, maybe 12 years looking for this. And I've seen, you know, two Baggios and two Maldinis over time. Certainly that's not the pop, but it just lets you know that these things are dang tough, right? And my copy, I think, was a SGC 2 or 1.5 or something. I mean, but it was still a nice card. And then for, I want to say, about 4 or 5 months, we saw like 6 or 7 of them come to auction.
Yeah, I saw a lot of them on
right?
LCC.
And then so people started to say, man, this thing is way more common than not. And guess what? I just checked the pop report right now. It's still a pop 10.
No, it's still very
And
low, yeah.
and it was pulling prices. You see, what you usually have, what we have in vintage is a little different from pre-modern and modern. Usually there's so many cards, so low pops, something sells that two people want, it drives up the price, it sells high, and then everybody who has that rushes to the market to try to get it, and then the price drives down. That's just, I can show you about 15 cases of that. When the first Baggio sold, it was like a PSA 4, it sold for like $35,000. So what did you expect? Anybody who had one came out and tried to sell them, and then as soon as those 7 sales were over, we haven't seen one in the last 6 months. And
No,
and
yeah.
that one has really kind of shored up my belief that these are really, really tough cards. And I think the Maldini's even rarer,
Even
at least from a
I believe that they are not probably, they 100% they are the best rookies for both for Maldini and Baggio. Because you have what? You have the Flash, you have the Calciatore, but I think those, especially the Calciatore, is much more common than
that's a condition rarity, yeah,
yeah, it's
because
condition area.
yeah, but it is not it's not, it's not a tough sticker by any, I mean anyone from that set is pretty common. Like the Maradona is probably the most graded vintage sticker we have still. um so but anyway, yeah, I was just trying to check, see if I could find the Maldini. So and then going back to vintage, I think you know, the Pele Aquarellas, which continue to, they're kind of like the 71 bis, they continue to hold up really well in this market relative to other things.
That card
um
surprises me a lot, Al. I have to be honest with you. If you
yes,
asked me, let's say even 6 months ago, maybe people don't like what I'm about to say, but I thought this card is going to crash bad. I really thought that because I saw so many. I'm in certain WhatsApp groups. I also see people posting them there. I thought, man, this is not that rare. I would say one thing in terms of eye appealing. What a beautiful card for Pele. I
yes,
love it. I think is probably top 2, top 3 in terms of in 58. Does not get much better than that. And that alone is huge. That's the reality. At the end of the day, we collect things that we like to see.
to
We
look
like
at.
exactly so. But that card surprises me a lot because for example, the Polyrex ended up crashing a bit, but the Polyrex is quite more rare than the Aquarelle. And that I thought, yeah, the Aquarelle is going in the same route, and they are correcting, but they are still fairly strong, I would say. So
Yeah, that was my point. I mean, I think that I think that's still climbing and is going to climb. I think that I would be shocked if there were no more, if the um Aquarella blue and black combined, because I don't really make that much of a differentiation, will be 1,000, a 1,000 pop.
hmm.
um and I know that for a lot of people that collect modern, that doesn't sound like a lot, or think about Michael Jordan's, you know, there are 25,000 graded copies, right, of his rookie. So that, I guess on a relative basis, it's still low.
Yeah.
But given some of the other choices, you know, that I still think are attractive one way or another, you know, I'm a bit surprised that's held up given the pop report, you know, and I still think the pop report has a long way to go
No, I
before
agree.
all those are graded. So I think that even though I knew it was probably going to be one of the most common, that's surprised me to the downside. So that's another one that surprised me to the downside. And then
But oh, okay.
on, go
Sorry,
ahead.
let me ask you one thing because I'm really curious to know your perspective on this, since you probably are the guy to ask this type of stuff. Is that I actually don't like the premium that people put on condition rarity on that card. I feel like they look so similar. That perforated stuff. I feel. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel it's so relative the way they grade it. I look sometimes at PSA 2.5s, to PSA 2s, and they look so similar to the 5 that sold for triple for 10x. And
Absolutely.
what do you think?
This is absolutely one of the cards, and I would say that here this is an area where I absolutely buy the card, not the grade, because in perforations, like I look at some of the perforations and I'm like, how is that a 7 versus the 2.5 that looks even
Yeah.
cleaner to me? So I do not put any, and I know the market is different. But for me myself, I can never justify paying for a high grade of that card relative to the eye appeal of some of the other ones. And to a similar extent, I feel like the Maradona 77, there are some great, 2s and 3s of the Pog, and there are some crappy. I don't know if you recently saw this PSA 5 that
Oh
sold at
my
Gilded.
God.
It looked like it just looked, I mean, how did that get a PSA 5? It looked like just a piece of shit, honestly.
That,
Like
I,
I
I
don't know
thought
how that got a PSA 5.
I thought that there was actually paper loss on the front. I don't get why. Whatever. I don't know. And not the first time, I believe, on LCC, a PSA 4, man, was so bad. You cannot even saw the Maradona face. And that's secret a lot of times, and you know this better than me. And I think this is the problem with all Argentina releases around that time, that they are out of focus a lot of times.
Yeah.
Oh man, but PSA on that, and look, I'm not criticizing PSA alone. I think all the grading companies do mistakes, but on that card, I see some horrendous graders. Honestly, I don't know.
Yeah, so but that's another one where I just make the point that um I don't, I tend to very carefully look at the card, not the grade. And like I recently got a PSA 3 77 disc that I just thought was gorgeous relative to, some of the other ones. I mean, all of my copies, you can very clearly read all but one letter on the Argentina juniors. Many of them are foggy. You can clearly see the face. A lot of them are, shifted, out of focus. Yeah, so I think those are, I don't know, we're kind of got a little bit on grading, but when I look at when I think of a card, that jumps out at me is like, okay, I've been negatively surprised. I always knew it was going to be more, but those Pele rookies, are even more than I thought of. I think if you would have asked me when we started the boom, I would have guessed that the titulares would have, especially the number 50 rookie. I don't know if people know that card, but the number 50 titulares rookie, I think that one would have tracked similar to the Aquarellas. And right now, I think that one looks downright rare. There's probably 75 copies.
You're talking about the horizontal one, right?
The horizontal one, yeah.
Yeah.
And
No.
we
Yeah.
always
Yeah.
knew that 86 was going to be more rare, but the titulares, let me tell you how many there are of that number 50.
I feel like that card is quite difficult to find.
Yeah, so now there are 62 and 6, so 68 copies graded. But literally, when, like, before the boom, you would have seen one titulares for every Aquarella.
Yeah. No. Yeah. I also have that idea actually.
And now you've got 70 total of the 50s, and then of the 86, you've got 36 of the 86, and there are 3 different versions of the 86.
But the 86 is quite more rare, right?
Yeah, so there's 36 of those. It's like there's half as many of the 86s as there are the 50s, and then of the 86s there are 3 different versions. So
okay.
that 36 is then segregated into 3 different versions, and the 50 ends up having less than 70 copies. And then you compare that with the Aquarellas, and you start to say, wow, this was like, literally I would have said, okay, the Aquarellas there's going to be more of those, but I would have thought the titulares would have been way closer. It has not been the case at all.
No, makes sense. Actually, this was not a question that I had for you previous this conversation, but now I'm really curious to know one thing, your perspective about this. And I could be wrong, but I feel like PSA, SEC probably a bit less, but I've been seeing so many stuff overgraded in vintage. I think it's probably the market, since the paper loss is what defines a lot the PSA 2 and above. I see the Bergman getting graded very soft. I see the Polyrex also. I feel like recently got a bit worse. Do you agree with that, or am I?
Yeah, I mean, and look at, I don't want to, you know, pick, one grading company over
No, for
over
sure.
another, but I will say that there have been a lot of disappointments in what I would call the key stickers
Mm.
of soccer collecting, especially vintage. The 68 to 70, because it was issued 2 years, the Cruyff.
Oh, that's another big one.
That
Yeah.
was just, that one was just been, there's been a lot of head shakers there. The Palarex, I mean, I literally got back, I don't know if you saw my videos of my recent submission. If I had one here, I could show it, although people can't fully appreciate it. It was, I got a PSA, I got a couple PSA 2s back that had never been stuck.
Okay.
Um, and I mean, they looked way better than some of the 7s
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
have been out there recently. Like you could clearly see, well, okay, I won't say clearly because I didn't see the card, but on the scans, it clearly looks like there's paper loss or they've been removed. And that just can't happen. The
No,
Bergmans, this card, we've been seeing, some of these that have, some very different printing on the back here that I've never seen in my, 30 copies that I have of this card. And that's concerning to see some of those. I'm not saying that they're fake, but
Mhm.
I'm just saying that if I've never seen one, and I know a lot of people that have collected that card for more than a decade and they've never seen them, and then they come out and suddenly they're high grade, that's a little concerning. And there are other ones that clearly had, I think I posted on the vintage Discord, some paper loss on the front, and it
No,
got a PSA 8. And
it's
so
crazy.
I am I frustrated? I'm frustrated. I mean, if I'm being completely like real,
Oh, the other day, and this is a true story. I was actually looking at this was probably 2 months ago or three, but I was looking at the LCC auction, and I was thinking, you know what, the Platini rookies is down a lot. I would not mind to add one to my collection. And I was looking at them. There was, I believe, two, a PSA 6, and I thought was still fairly low. And I was, okay, maybe I put a bid. There was paper loss, but big paper loss on the back. I was like, oh my God. So I went to the other one, was a PSA 4, also had paper loss. I was like, what's going on? I mean, but I'm not talking something that, because sometimes even you that have a lot of experience, looking at high resolution, we think, I'm not sure, maybe not. But there is other cases that is actually obvious, you know. So
yeah,
I
I
don't know
mean,
what's going on.
like I will, and I have no problem to say, oh, look at, I didn't see this mistake. I didn't see this crease on the card when I sent it in. I usually in my mind, I have a pretty good memory, and I look at it and I say, okay, well, trying to look for an example here in some of these cards that I just have sitting on my desk. But there's not really a good one, so I might as well not even talk about it. But I'll look at it and I'll say, okay, this got a 2, and I'm like, how the hell this got a 2? It looks great. Then I'll look at it in all the different ways of the light, and guess what? Okay, there's a hairline bend or something. Okay, fine, give it a 2. I still don't think it deserves a 2 like that because it's not a full crease. And you can see soccer, I mean, baseball cards with creases get 3s.
Yeah.
And it's never been stuck,
I
and it's
mean,
not a crease. It's a
I,
little,
I see cards with creases getting fours also.
yeah. And so I'm
Uh,
like, why this has never been stuck? This should be at least a 3. I mean, freaking, it looks like a 9 on the eye appeal and centering, and you give it a 2. I don't get it. And it seems like, and again, I don't know how they do this and if it's the difference between bulk or whatever, but it's pretty rare that I get surprised by a good grade. But it seems like everything being sold looks to be like overgraded. So unfortunately now, whereas I'd say 2017, I would almost, like, if it was a PSA 7, 8, or 9, I almost would never even look at the back. I would
Yeah, I
just
mean,
assume I would just assume that they got it right. And I don't think I ever had a case where they got it wrong, frankly. And so, but now if I'm going to bid anything more than like $50, I'll have to look at the back.
yeah, no, it is what it is basically. But I have hope that over time things will get better, since there is still a lot of education that needs to happen in the grading space for soccer. So we also have to be optimistic. But I remember when I met you, you always said this, that buy the card, not the grade. And to be fair, a lot of people say it, but that's true. I mean, you really need to to do your own research. Even the other, and there is still a lot of people putting a crazy premium on plastic. That's the reality, and there is nothing we can do. The other day I was looking at the Cristiano Ronaldo Mega Cracks, the card, and the other day, this again was months ago, but there was in the same auction a SEC 8.5 and the BGS 8.5. I took a look at both. Man, the SEC was so clean. I thought, oh wow, this could be a 9 at PSI. Who knows? I thought was the BGS. You saw edges with problem, corners. The centering was a little bit meh. Sold for the exactly same amount of money. I was like, oh my god, people really go for the grade, and that's it. But yeah,
And,
I
and
mean,
I would, when I look at these, I mean, I look at every card that I'm going to bid on incredibly carefully, and I always have. And it's actually not been to my advantage over time, because plastic has actually ruled the day, over time.
oh
I've
yeah,
gotten that wrong. But I just believe that, at some point, either with AI grading or some other thing, that these things will get a little bit more scrutiny. And I've been super disappointed lately in how I have to inspect the cards, and some cards I just have stayed away from, generally because of questions like the Ronaldo sticker, right? We don't need to go into the whole BGS fiasco there. But I will say that in general, I have been way closer in my grade expectation versus reality with SGC. And I have been very successful when I crack things out of SGC holders, sending them into PSA and getting better grades in the SGC grades. So not always, of course, you're never going to be 100 for 100, but I'd say that I think because they're still relatively small versus the other ones, it's easier to have a tighter quality control,
yeah.
right?
So I probably don't have as much experience as you in that front, but I also cracked a couple of cards from SEC and send to both PGS and PSA in the past, for different reasons that does not matter right now. But I always got better grades with SEC. I always, no matter if I send to BGS, I had a Messi that got a 4.5 at SEC that I thought was crazy and fair. Got a PSA 7. No, not a PSA 7, I'm sorry, a BGS 7. I also had a sticker that was a PSA, not a PSA, I'm sorry, a SCC 5, got a PSA 8. So I had, uh, again, every card is a card, and there is probably SCC cards, stickers that are a bit overgraded, because that will
Yeah,
happen in every company.
it's gonna happen everywhere. But what I'll say is, what I've noticed over a larger data set is that if I take it out, if I crack it and
Yeah,
send it in,
if
I
you crack
have,
it, because
yeah,
if you
because if you send it in the holder, like
forget about it.
I've sent in, and I did the stats on this. I sent in a total of like 300 cards in SGC holders, and like 180 got downgraded by 1 grade or less. One got upgraded,
Okay.
and then I sent in 50, cracked out, and 35 got upgrades.
Oh wow.
Right. So it was just like, Now I do understand, and when I brought this up to the management at PSA, they're like, listen, when we look at things through a holder, we have to be extra conservative,
Okay, but
because we're not sure if it's on the glass, if there's something between it. So we're extra conservative on that. And I'm like, okay, well then if you are going to give it one grade less and you crack it out, look at it again.
of course, I mean, I'm sorry,
Right?
but that's not the best excuse, because
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
understand that if you send with a minimum grade, they can say, okay, no, we are not taking the risk. But if they crack it, look at the card again. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
so
So,
I, so actually, I have a fun story. Recently, I bought a Top Scrum Buffon, was a orange out of 25, and I bought in a tag slab, the new grading company that
oh
grades
yeah,
in.
yeah. How are those slabs? I've never held one.
No, I basically sent to a vault and then end up shipping again. But people say that they are nice. I have no idea, honestly. But the card was the 9, and I was like, man, I no disrespect to tag, but I don't like this slab. I want to put inside of BGS one of the big three. And I also thought, man, but I probably need to crack this, because if I try they will give me a lower grade. I said, you know what? Whatever. Send it this way. If I get a lower grade, first time it happens to me, the card was a 9 on tag. SEC gave me a 9.5, and I was like, oh wow, I was already expecting an 8. But sometimes it happens, but it's
Yeah.
very rare. And to be
It's
fair,
very rare.
it was not a super important card. I also think that goes into consideration when they look at the card. But first time I got an upgrade without cracking the card. So the question number 3, Al, and yeah, I think your example ended up being spot on. The question number 3 is a fun one. Buy one, sell one, hold one. I did this question 1 year ago when you end up appearing on the podcast for the first time. But in this case, is vintage, pre-modern, and pre-war. Buy one, sell one, hold one.
Vintage, pre-modern.
And pre-war. Pre-war is also vintage, but you get the point, right?
Yeah. Man, my problem is I say buy them all right now.
No.
So my yeah, I think I'm gonna say right now buy pre-modern because it's just absolutely been decimated. Like
Okay.
it's just there's like blood all over the streets here. Um and I just think you can get some of the most iconic cards and players for just I mean, if you had a $5,000 budget, I think in pre-modern, you could put together a fantastic collection
Oh yeah.
of nicely graded, excellent eye appeal of every great to play the game over the last 30 years.
No, I mean you can buy with $5,000. You can buy a lot of stuff in this market.
Yeah,
Especially even if you buy raw to grade. Oh man, yeah, I agree.
yeah. So I think there you're gonna get more bang for your collecting buck if you focus there. Now, you know, I guess and this is crazy that I'm gonna say this, but I'm gonna say hold hold pre-war.
Okay.
And I'm gonna say sell vintage, but this goes against my grain right
No,
now.
this is just a fun question. I
Yeah,
understand
yeah.
you believe in three
And
markets.
I really believe in in all of them for different segments, and it really comes down to me, the player, the issue. Like I never just say buy it all, right?
No, of
It's kind
course.
of like like I'm not going into the stock market right now, but there are stocks in the stock market that I'm carefully looking at to say, okay, now I think the time for this particular stock. So, so always I think there's a way here, but I look at what I win in the vintage section, like on PWCC, and right now it's very little. So that tells me that there's a lot of people still willing to pay more than I am. And so that's
Yeah.
kind of a relative thing for me. I'm like, okay, if I'm not winning much of the and there's still continued strength among all Pele issues from the
Oh yeah.
60s, right?
Pele still very strong. I
Yeah, very
agree.
strong. And so I'm like, dang, I thought I could pick this one up, and I'm just not still picking them up, right? So I think that that's one of the things that would lead me to believe that some of those 60s issues, maybe you're selling, especially the more common ones. And then, I think that pre-war, outside some of the UK issues from the 1930s, there I feel on our vintage chat, um, just there's incrementally more interest. And again, this isn't something that's like we had 10 yesterday and now we have 2,000. No, it's just like it's a trickle in. And so there's just more people, but the supply there and the pops are very, very low in general. So you only need a few people to really, kind of have a stable, market and to feel really good about it. So certain players get hot at certain times because of certain narratives or certain records that are being broken or whatever. Like now you start to hear Dixie Dean a little bit more because of Holland and what he's doing in the Premier League. So I think that if I had to do it, I'd say that. But the reality is, I buy
All three.
and I focus more on the player, the issue, the true rarity, which is my primary focus anyway, is really about true rarity.
No, for sure. I actually feel, again, still related to this topic, that since our last podcast 1 year ago, I feel like I see pre-war quite more on auction nowadays. I feel is one of the areas of the market. Is still rare comparing with other eras. But I
Yeah.
remember the PWCC weekly auction starting in 58 automatic with Pele cards. Right now starts at, in the
Yeah, it starts in
20s.
the 1920s.
Yeah. So I feel like at least looking from outside, since I don't collect pre-war that much, I feel like that there is actually a great increase putting in terms of percentage. I think is an amazing increase and probably
Yeah, I think
deserve it.
that people were nervous because they didn't want to sell something that never been sold and you're not sure how that's going to do in auction. And now I think that most people have realized, oh, there's enough of a base here
That's a good
that
point.
that I'm not typically going to get it completely lost. And there's an advantage on pre-war, specifically on PWC, which has a nice sorting function that it shows up at the beginning. And if you're into pre-war, it's only a few pages, so you can get a pretty good look at it. There's a higher likelihood it's going to be seen. If you're selling a 2018 Prism, it's like on, tab 42, right?
I never thought about that, but that's actually a great point. I never thought about that for some reason, but actually that you are talking, I always check the pre-war stuff even if I don't want, because when
Yeah,
I put
because that's your landing page. When you sort by
exactly
soccer, you get landed right there. And so
that's a
you're going to
great
get
point.
the eyeballs that you don't get if you're, 2018 Prism. Very few
No,
people
yeah.
have the endurance to get all the way to the back.
No, that makes a lot of sense, honestly. No, but I think you end up explaining very well your logic. And again, it's just a fun question. I totally
Yeah.
understand that you like all markets. But moving to the question number 4, I think this is also a fun question. You have a lot of experience in the soccer card market. You end up sharing with me that you bought a Messi in 2012. So most of us started collecting 2020, 2021. So you are the godfather of the soccer card market in a way. But if you could just give one advice, to be fair, I think you already touched on this one, but I'm still going to ask
Yeah.
if you could just give one advice to a new collector that is entering right now the market, starting collecting some Maradona, some Messi, but still not sure what's going on, just collecting the players they like. What the advice will be?
Yeah. So my general philosophy about collecting anything is, and actually, honestly, even about life, it's about have a goal. Have, and this doesn't mean that you can't change your goal, but I think that having like a focus
Mhm.
is really important. It's very easy to get distracted in any collecting anything. And I think having a very specific purpose is critical to your success and frankly fulfillment, right? I mean, when you start checking the boxes of doing the things you want to, whether that's at your job, at home, or in your collecting, you feel a sense of accomplishment and there's some value there. And together with that, so like if you're a Barca fan and you want to collect all the Barca greats, well, make a list of your Barca greats. Do your research, set up your targets. Are you going to do specific eras? Are you going to do leagues? I mean, that's one of the great things about soccer. You can go countries, you can go leagues, you can go clubs, you can go, only Champions League, you can go, stickers, you can go cards, you can do any hybrid of any of these, right? You can go North America, you can go South America, you can go, well, not really North America. What do we have? But you can go, countries, it's just so rich the way that you can do it to your interests. And I think if you think about those interests ahead of time, and then you prioritize, hey, these are the things that I want to do. And then I usually aggregate that with something that I call my top 10 most wanted list. And I said, okay, these are my current top 10 grail cards. And these are the things that if they show up, almost all of them have absolute true rarity, right? So you need to do your work, you need to do your homework, you need to research. And when these things come up, I'm going to stretch for them. This is the time where I'm like, okay, well, I'm not going to go out for the fancy dinner this week because I need that extra $100 to put in my card budget because this is so important to me. And then if I get one of those, then I replace that. I have another list of secondary ones, and I'm like, which one's going to make the list? And then I put it on there. And those are things that I'm willing to pay significant premiums to last comp to get. And that's what has helped me to build the collection that I have today, which I'm not going to say is the best collection in the world. I think that would be really egotistical, but it's certainly
Is one of the best.
it's one of the best collections, certainly vintage collections.
Is the best I know. So
Yeah. I mean, I think you know, I may not be the leader. I definitely don't have the best Brazilian collection out there, but I have a very good Brazilian collection. I may not have the best Argentine collection, but I have the best Argentine collection. I might have the best Portuguese, but I have a really good Portuguese collection. Same with the UK. So I have, lots of different really good. I don't think I have the best collection of any way, but I also collect 500 players across all eras. So, that hasn't been my focus. I think as far as breadth and depth, I have a very, very good collection.
Very good case to be the number one.
Yeah. But I'm happy with where it is. But I still work every day to make it even better. And I think that most collectors are that way. I think we all have this collector gene. It would be interesting to know from a biological perspective if we all have something different from other people, because it makes me tick. It brings me joy and happiness. It's a focus of my life and has been since I was 7 years old. Right.
Is actually I can relate, and the collector gene. There is actually studies around that, which I find fascinating. That some people really believe that that's the case. I'm not sure if science confirms this in certain way or not. But I'm very similar on that. At 8 years old, 9 years old, I was already collecting Pokemon cards, Magic cards, and I never stopped collecting, not soccer, but always collecting something. And I guess I can give an example. My brother, for example, he never had that. He never was like whatever. I don't care that much. And I also know people like me. I guess you are an amazing example. But even here in Portugal, that they also have to collect something. It's something that gives them some type of focus in life, some type of almost, I don't want to get too deep, but a meaning.
Yeah.
I don't know how to express it better, but there is people that don't get a lot.
Right. I mean, so. I don't know if I mentioned this to you or you had heard. So I have, the Baseball Hall of Fame in the United States is a very important institution. and they've reached out to me, and I'm going to loan them a bunch of cards. Actually, here's some of these cards that I'm going to loan them. We're just finishing out the legal documents where they're going to take a bunch of my cards and put them on display in the Baseball Hall of Fame.
Oh,
Um,
that's amazing.
which to me, I mean, and help educate people about, specifically the Negro Leagues and stuff. And that was a lot of work to put that together. And I'm excited because a lot of those players aren't really known, and they're generally of African American descent. And I think that's a great contribution that I am giving back to society. And I love history, and I'm incredible. It's an honor to have my cards, there, and they'll be on display, and hundreds and thousands of different people will come in there over the years, and maybe it'll spark their interest in history, and it'll, make the world a better place. Now, I'm not saying I set out my collecting to do that, but it's really nice to have that,
Eventually, yeah.
come into effect. And then, like my son was commenting the other day, because there's one of these Jawa vinyl on card Star Wars figures that's coming up to auction in this auction house in the US called Hakes. And Alex, my son, was asking me about the story, and I'm telling him all about the story. And it's really, about how they were shipped, and how the people in Taiwan, when they manufactured them, interpreted the coat to be vinyl, and they put it on. And then when it got there, they got pulled from the shelves. And just the story of this, people making stuff that have never seen the movie and hadn't interpreted the art, but how they tried to, and why it's so rare, and all this type of stuff. And so he's like, wow, that's funny. Wow, that's so cool. Wouldn't that be cool to have one? I'm like, I have one. I'm like, let me show you. And then he says, that's typical. My dad, he doesn't even collect Star Wars figures, and he has the rarest,
But
one.
your son likes to collect, or is
He
not
doesn't.
something?
I mean, he collected. He appreciates it. He collected. Oh, he did a little bit of Pokemon cards. That's actually the reason why I have Pokemon cards, is that he was collecting them, and I'm like, okay, if you're gonna collect them, I'll collect them too. Little bit different level of Pokemon cards, but still, it was fun. While he was interested in it, but then as he got into being a teenager, he's like, kind of put that on the side. He collected for a little while these little Domo figures. You know this? It's a
No,
little.
I'm not
It,
sure.
it's a Japanese little figure, and they had all sorts of variations. One of those blind box things. So he
Okay.
collected those, but he's not really. I mean, he appreciates it. He went to the National with me this year, and he liked it, but
Okay.
he wasn't like, oh, I'm gonna take my savings money and I'm gonna buy something. He just was more as a tourist than an active participant.
But that's so fascinating, because makes me believe that there is actually something in us that certain people really love to collect, and it's not just collecting, because I feel like there is levels of also collectors. The collectors that they do it just very casual, but there is people, and let's be real, we all, everyone on Discord probably is like, not everyone, but a lot of people on Discord is probably like that. We get really obsessed with with stuff, and that's something certain people don't have that, and I tend to doubt you can. Build that over time. I really feel it's something that you have or you don't. Even as a kid, is quite evident.
And this is why I think there's got to be a gene,
Yeah.
because you would think that with all of the cards that I have and all of the stuff that I have, that naturally it would. And look, and I bond with my son over, video games, or, right now the basketball tournaments, or, some sports, or many other things. But he's rarely, comes in and asks me about, Beckenbauer, or, who's this, Romario, or, and he'll go to, like, like we would go to the Clásico, right, in Barcelona, to watch, Real Madrid, and he'll go and he'll have fun, but there's just not that, like, deep. I'm like,
Yeah.
do you know how important this is? I mean, we've got Messi, Suarez, you've got Iniesta, you got CR7, everyone's on this field. I mean, this is crazy. And he's like, yeah, that's cool. and you're just like, no, 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 this is great. No, and he's like, no, I mean, yeah, okay, Dad.
So
Um,
actually, Al, I find that fascinating because I have a younger brother. He's, I believe, 7 years younger than me. And when I was collecting magic, I always tried to have him also playing with me. Even with soccer, I show him all of this stuff. Does not work, something that whatever. To
yeah,
be
yeah.
fair, I kind of feel that your son and my brother, they are a bit cooler than us.
I think, I mean, I'm a total nerd. I
We
mean,
are the nerds, yeah.
so I mean, and it's okay. And my daughter laughs at me. Now my wife is super, super supportive. And that's a lot of fun. But so she actually gets into more of the details, and stuff. But I think she does it more like, well, if it's important to him, it's going to be important to me.
Oh,
And
that's beautiful.
so that's it. But yeah, there's not a lot of not a lot of of collectors in my family. My mom has thought I was nuts since the time I was a kid. So it
No,
is
yeah.
what it is.
No, but great answer and also great topic. So the question number 5, just to finish this, is basically I always ask this question: hot take about the market. Could be about the card market in general. Could be about the soccer card market. Feel free to share your perspective, but try to be a bit controversial, even though all of this is for fun.
Yeah, I was just I was just trying to think here about something that I've noticed, which is what, and this is going to be hard for you to understand, but over the last few years, when you go to like a Walmart or a Target, which are big, stores here, you would always find like a dearth, meaning very few options available to buy product. And now you go in and it's like jam packed. Like you can
But
get anything you want, Prism football,
okay.
hockey, like it's just packed. And
Mm.
I would be and it's retail, and then the price points also went up. So and our economy's struggling. And one of the things, and then if you look at all the numbers of the parallels coming out in these new sets, and you just work backwards, you start to say, wow, these print runs are way more than they used to be
Mm.
at a time when I think a lot of people after we had a lot of people come into the hobby and then now a lot of people left. And there's some concern of mine that we're entering, you know, a junk 2.0 era. Now I
Okay.
think it's too early to call that per se. Because I don't know, still if you go to Tops, their website, they sell out of a lot of the hobby stuff relatively quickly. And maybe it's a retail only phenomena that doesn't have a lot of the really important chase stuff. Retail isn't necessarily that you can't get the same stuff and certainly the pull rates out of retail that you can out of hobby, right? Hobby
Mm.
boxes. So maybe it's a specific retail thing, but I'd be lying if I didn't say that I start to feel like between the increase in the price point, the decrease in demand, and the economic environment that we couldn't potentially be headed for a junk 2.0, which is bad for all the card market.
Of course.
Um, and so that's, I don't know if it's a hot take, but it's a hot concern of mine when you walk in and literally the things now are so stacked up that they're literally falling over. I mean, I'll take a picture next time I go to Target and send it to you, but it's not a good vibe because you kind of need that demand and scarcity to provide some stability and upside momentum, and it's the exact opposite that I'm seeing right now.
Yeah, you kind of need a nice balance, right, between availability and also, scarcity. Related with this, I was, I believe, it was a Pokemon podcast I was watching about the card market, and they said something that made me think a lot. That one of the collectors on the podcast said that he believes the market was better for the Pokemon market before the explosion. And I thought, why? I mean, so many people entering the market, prices end up going so up. But his argument, and it's actually similar to what you are talking about, that he said that yes, there was a huge influx, and Pokemon was even a special case on that front, a huge influx of collectors. They spike the pop reports, even in vintage. Vintage for them is, to be fair, is 2001, 99.
Mhm.
You guys get the point. A spike of pop reports, things that they thought end up being rare, end up not being that rare when the awareness is so strong. Most of those guys left the market, and it feels like now we are left, the true collectors, with a market that, in terms of the fundamentals we expected 3 years ago, 4 years ago, are not that great, and the demand is not there. And I actually was reflecting about that, and I thought, man, this guy is actually making some sense on this. Maybe the explosion was just good for people that flip at that time, but for people that is operating long run, actually, maybe you can make that argument for soccer if you think about. Look, for example, the Bergman cards for Beckenbauer. If the explosion never happens, maybe that card have a steady growth that right now probably will find the problem. Am I making sense, Al?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that, and originally, people were, when I was telling people I didn't like the boom, they're like, "Are you kidding me? You made so much money," and I'm like, "Well, since I'm not selling, I haven't made any money, and it just made it more expensive for me to collect in the short term, right?" And so, and while you're, in that track, I'm still collecting, still adding to the collection. So I bought at prices, at different phases that now I'm underwater on those things. And if we wouldn't have had the boom, there would be a steady growth, and I'd more likely be generally above water on everything. Look at, I'm still above water for my collection. There's no question there, but you can easily make a case to, depending on where you went in, you got hurt and you enjoyed it less, and you could get less for your collection over time, even if you're putting little bits in play over time, like a dollar cost averaging strategy. It's
Yeah,
really hard to do that with a big spike, because if you get, at different points on the up, when the down comes, your average is bad. So I don't, what I liked about the boom is that it brought a lot of people in, and a lot of them ended up being true collectors, and it created communities together with technologies like Discord for people to share. And I think for a lot of us weirdos that can't convince our children or our brother to collect with them, where you want that sense of community, especially when we're all locked up during COVID, that was a fantastic, joy creating. Like, I can't imagine COVID without kind of talking soccer cards with people. Like,
oh yeah,
it
that's
would have been a bad place for me. And so, I think that that was a really positive, but kind of, I do think that, and I've said this, many times, there is some negative to unsustainable rapid price increases because of a temporary shift in demand.
yeah. No,
You know?
I agree. And actually, sorry, and actually is related with the other topic that maybe there was a lot of people entering the market that they don't have the gene, but they had the greed, they thought, you know what, let make me, and that affects all of us that actually want to build a bigger collection, to have. So it's a complex topic, to be honest, but I think it's something that over time we'll have even a better perception of what ended up happening, what will happen for the future. And I also don't think the Pokemon example applies that well in soccer, because I feel Pokemon in general, apart from certain rare cards, as you know, but Pokemon in general is mass produced in a big level. And I also think the explosion in Pokemon was completely insane. We had the explosion in soccer, but Pokemon with all the YouTubers, etc., it was just in a different level in terms of explosion. So
Yeah. So and it's funny though. I mean, going back to some of the stuff I love soccer, and this is completely off kind of topic, but even when you talk about this card, since we were talking about pops, which are very easy. And
By the way, that's a nice one because it looks really good on the front.
yeah, I mean, you got a little bit of excess paper up here, but yeah, I mean, it
Yeah,
looks
whatever.
awesome. But there's only, this you're talking about probably the best defender of all time.
Yep.
And I was just looking at the pop report. There's still 125 of these.
No,
right?
that's why I said the example is not perfect with Pokemon because Pokemon is like 2,000, 5,000, 10,000.
Yeah,
It's not comparable.
and this is a beautiful card. And if you took out, there are 2 9s, 6 8s, 4 7s, 5 6s. So you're talking about there's less than 20 copies above a 5.
Oh,
Right?
that's
Of which to me still is like crazy for a beautiful card of probably the best defender of all time. If not, put them in your top 3 defenders of all time, 5, whatever you want. Pick your
I think Beckenbauer is probably in most lists top 10 ever. Forget
yeah,
defenders, even ever. So
yeah,
I
in,
agree.
in all players. Yeah.
All players. Yeah.
So like when you look at that, at least for me, I look at that and I'm like, I mean, if you have any remote, barring like fakes and like, all this other stuff, if you have any remote belief that soccer will continue to be the global sport of preference, that there'll be more and more interest, and that generally collecting will continue as a societal phenomenon across the world, why would you not bet on stuff like that? To me. So anyway, I'm not here to be an apostle telling people to buy what you like, collect what you like, figure out your own plan. But when I just look at it at a super high level, like I did the other day, I was on this gem mint or gem rate. Do you ever go to that website?
Yeah, I use that website a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll go there right now and just verify what I'm going to say. But it was funny. I just checked for, a player, data.
Okay.
And I was like, how many cards are there of Messi, right? Graded in general. This is everything. And there was, I want to say 70,000. Let me see if I got this.
Oh, but don't you think that, and that's also actually a great topic, that we also end up getting too spoiled in soccer in the sense that at one point we thought, okay, we are collecting things that are below pop 10, pop 20. And now a card is over pop, let's say 100, which is not a lot. And we are like, yeah, that card is trash. That card is not trash.
See, I think this is where my perspective was different from most, where I'm like, that card is a pop hundreds. Like I've always like in my math where I say, hey, how do I buy a card? Like I am assuming even when I bought the 1957 Pele, which now is a pop 2, when I bought it was a pop 1, I'm like, okay, this is going to be a pop 20.
Okay.
Over time, right? So I had a very different vantage point from a lot of people because I saw so much stuff for so many years. But I look at like my point I was going to make on Messi and forget about like specifically the exact number, but right here it came out. Okay, there's 77,000 cards. And when you go down to the rookies, it's only a few thousand, right? But 77,000 cards. And then you look relative to another sports star like let me just say Zion, just because that's probably
Luca rookie is over 30K, I believe. So
yeah, so Zion himself has 380,000. So you're talking about a guy who's probably going to end up going down as a bust for the NBA.
That guy is bigger than the entire soccer market.
Yeah, he has what four times what Messi has.
Yeah, it's insane.
And so even when we're complaining about like James was all the numbered Messi cards and stuff like that, I mean, still on a relative basis,
it's still low. Yeah.
it's still like everything is so crazy low. Luca has 330,000. So again, four plus times what Messi has. So I every now and then you need to just step back and look at the like even like let me pick another player who's a very important baseball player, Willie Mays, very important baseball player, and he, remember, only had tops issues, so only one issue for almost his entire career, right? Because he starts in 1952. Yeah, there's some Baumans, there's some regional. He has 150,000, and he only had one set for most of his life, right?
Okay.
And so when you kind of go back, when I kind of go back on this, I'm like, okay, and then you actually narrow that down. Forget about the 77, because a lot of the 77,000 Messi cards are trash. But you narrow it down to kind of the rookie basis, and I think you feel really good even about the more modernly mass-produced number. Things like the Mundi Chromo cards from the 1990s and 2000s. Even the Panini stickers. So I don't know. I continue to love it. I continue to love collecting soccer. If you find enjoyment in it, whoever's watching, if they've been watching us this long, God bless you, number one. Number two, collect what you like, find joy in it, because that's what this should all be about. Enjoying, obviously, Andre's Discord. Join the Vintage Soccer Discord if you're interested in vintage. There's a lot of people there that will help you on your collecting journey, and you can reach out to me. I'm sure Andre's pretty responsive. I mean, now that things have cooled down, I get a lot less messages, so I'm able to respond to most people. If you've got questions about the hobby, I really want the hobby to be successful. I found joy in it, and I hope all your listeners find joy in it as well, Andre.
No, for sure. Thank you so much, all. I think is everything for today. We end up talking about all the topics I had. I think you end up again answering all of them the best way that I could imagine. So repeating myself, but thank you so much for accepting the invite. This was a bit, we were talking, and all of a sudden we end up finding an hour to record this. If you have any final words to my viewers, feel free, Al.
No, it's good. Just collect what you like, and good luck. Be part of the community. Don't be out there on your own. Come in and talk to people. I think it enriches everyone to hear different perspectives, even if we don't all agree, right? I think that's part of the beauty of things.
No, yeah. So guys, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to leave a like, and see you guys next time. Bye.